Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Total Bases Podcast Express Show. I am your host, Austin Spiro. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 3 of the Total Bases Express Show, live here at the Baseball Life Facebook group on Thursday nights. And then you can also go ahead and check us out on the Total Bases Show, the full-length Total Bases Show on Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. Central. Usually it is my friends Felipe and Sean. This week I'll actually be making I'll fill in for Sean on the podcast, and I will be with Felipe this weekend. But it's just me tonight. I'm flying solo tonight. And we got another quick baseball analysis for you. Good baseball analysis for you. We're going to be doing some very, very early, very premature picks for next season. So who do I think is going to click? Basically players and teams that I think are going to click for next season. I tried to get away from the obvious teams like, I think the Dodgers are going to click. Yeah, obviously the Dodgers are going to click. They're a powerhouse of a team. The Yankees, people like that. I try to get away from those. And I try to get away from the obvious players, the Mike Trouts, players like that. Maybe a player you've never heard of, or a player you never expected, or maybe just a little different take on a player. Not necessarily a player that you would pick to click because they're a power hitter, but maybe a player that, I would pick to click because they just get on base or they're a good run producer or whatever, something like that. I'm going to go hitters and pitchers. So I've got 2 hitters, I've got 2 pitchers, and I've got 2 teams that I've got as a pick to click. Again, I did all my research based on Fangraphs. Fangraphs is a good, I think anyway, it's a good comprehensive website for a lot of baseball stats that I need. And it's really good. So I'm going to try and keep this a lot of stats out of it today. I'm going to do both. I'm going to do kind of a little, I did that to start my research and then kind of base it on my knowledge of the player and some research that I did of the player and what I've seen of the player. I try to do a mix of both stats and eye test. So let's get going with it. I see some comments. If you've got comments, we're live on Facebook. Go ahead and drop a comment. Go ahead and drop what you think of my analysis live on the show here. Let's get right into it. I'm going to pick. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick 2 players to click next year, 2 players that you might not necessarily be looking at, or 2 players that are maybe don't get as much recognition, or maybe you've never heard of before. So I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to get started with the hitters. And basically how I started this research was I went on Fangraphs and I did qualified. I went to the batting leaders and I lowered it, or I made it to qualified hitters. That was my constraint. They had to be, I said that it was going to be my constraint. And then one of the guys I picked to click is not a qualified hitter right now, but I'll tell you why in a minute. And then I decided I was going to look at weighted runs created plus. Now I said I was going to keep the stats out of it. This is probably one of the only sabermetric stats that I'm going to talk about tonight. And for those of you that are not sure what weighted runs created plus is, basically a small definition of it. I won't give you the history of it. It's from Bill James's runs created and stuff like that. But what I will tell you is weighted runs created plus is essentially, it is a metric that attempts to quantify a player's total value, and it's measured by runs. Now, the good thing about weighted runs created plus, that plus means that it is adjusted for park factor and league factor, right? So basically it's adjusted for the era that you play in and what park you play at, right? So I decided to look at weighted runs created plus. I think it is a good comprehensive statistic that shows a total value of a player. And I decided that I was just going to look at some of the players maybe that you wouldn't necessarily think of as a top producer offensively. So obviously, you look at the top 10 in weighted runs created plus, according to Fangraphs, you've got Aaron Judge at number 1. Henry, I see you in the comments. I think obviously you're going to, ride the horse on that. Aaron Judge has got a 196 weighted runs created plus. You've got Paul Goldschmidt, Yordan Alvarez, Nolan Arenado, Jose Altuve, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, the who's who of of offensive players. But I decided I was going to look down a little bit, and there started to be some players that I was kind of shocked were up here. You had Nathaniel Lau, you had Andres Jimenez. I was kind of shocked to be up there, but one that I've liked for a while that I want to talk about because I feel like he doesn't get as much love as he should, primarily because he is not a power hitter, I guess you could say. He has 8 home runs this year, but he's not a strikeout guy. He doesn't walk very much. He is very much a contact guy, but he is such a good hitter that he is good for 23rd overall in the bigs among qualified hitters at 137 weighted runs created plus. For those of you that are not familiar with weighted runs created plus, 100 is league average. Okay, so and in any number above 100, that is another percentile better, right? And if you're below 100, that's a percentile worse. So, for example, this player has a 137 weighted runs created plus. That means he's better offensively than about 37% of the league. And that's good for 27 or 23rd best on this list. I'm talking about Twins first baseman Luis Arayas. I have personally really loved Luis Arayas. I thought Luis Arayas has been here for a while, and really he has. He's been here since 2019. He's played in the big since 2019 anyway. But the problem was he has a lot of problems with his knees, right? He has a lot of injury problems with his knees, and he started out as a middle infielder, second base shortstop. They couldn't really find a place for him. They put him in the outfield, couldn't find a place for him, mainly because he kept getting hurt, right? And he could never find a place to play fielding wise. And then the Twins got Andrelton Simmons, and you're not going to beat Andrelton Simmons when it comes to defensive metrics. So, he lost out on the shortstop job. He was getting injured, too injured to play second, but he's finally found a place at first base. And I think first base is a good place for him at this point in his career, simply because we know he has a history of injuries with his knees. So first base isn't going to hurt him when it comes to his knees, because it's not as first base is hard, but it's not going to be as hard on his knees. Now, when we take a look at it, obviously he's decently fast for people with knee problems. He was rated a 50 out of 50 in 29 or a 50 out of an 80 total scale in 2019 on his prospect report, but he doesn't, I don't think he steals very many bases. No, in his career, he's stolen a total of 8 bases, which is fantastic. What a fantastic metric. But what he does help you with is he gets hits. He makes contact with the ball. And not only does he make contact with the ball, he just flat out gets on base, right? He's slash lining right now a 318 average, a 383 OBP, and a 430 slugging, right? So again, he's not going to necessarily give you a whole lot of power. He's got 8 homers this year, but that is a uptick in power from previous seasons. In 2019, he had 4 home runs. In 2020, he didn't have any in 32 games. In 2021, he played 121 games and had 2 homers. This year, he's played in 116 games, 8 home runs. Okay. Now, is that, oh my God, he's going to be the next Aaron Judge? Oh my God, he's going to be the next great power hitter? No, but it is an uptick in power. While he's had a little bit of an uptick in power, he's walking at about a 10% rate, and he strikes out less than 10%. He walks more than he strikes out. Okay. At the moment in 2022, he has 46 walks and 37 strikeouts. Okay. Again, 46 walks is not big. He's not going to necessarily walk, but he's not going to strike out either. He's going to make contact with the baseball, and more times than not, and he's proven more times than not, it's going to be a hit. In 2019, a 334 average, a 2023 in 2020, 321 average. His first season below a 300 average was last year. In 2021 was 294. But this year in 2022, he's fixing to have an AL batting title. He's in the conversation for an AL batting title at 318. And I believe, if I remember correctly, and Felipe is in the comments, Felipe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Luis Arayas, according to statistics, has been rated as the best chance to have the next 400 season. since the last time we had a 400 season, which was Ted Williams, right? So I think he is a very good hitter. Like I said, and there's a comment in here from Bill. Bill, thank you for contributing here in the comments here. It's a great example, actually. He's kind of like Grace. I believe his first name is Mark, if I'm not mistaken. His first name is is escaping me for a second. Yeah, he's kind of like Grace, makes a lot of contact with very limited power. But with a team like the Twins, I feel like he is a very good hitter for that Twins lineup. Not only that, he's only 25 years old. And that shocked me because I felt like he was older. So he's still got some seasons behind him where he can produce 300 seasons and he can go for that batting title. And he's getting a little bit of an uptick in power, a little bit of an uptick in slugging. He could very, very well be, he could very well challenge for batting titles and be a difficult hitter in that Twins lineup for a while. So that is my first pick to click, Luis Arayas of the Minnesota Twins. As long as his knees stay healthy and he continues to play first base, there we go. Yes, I was right. Mark Grace, former Cubs first baseman. I knew it was going to come back to me. Thank you, Felipe, for helping me out there. My second pick to click. Now, when I first started this, I had told myself I am only going to pick qualified hitters. Only going to pick qualified hitters. No unqualified hitters are going to get in there. But I've watched this guy, and there's just something about this guy that I feel like it's weird because not only do I not usually pick qualified hitters as a pick to click, but I don't pick rookies either because I believe very much in the sophomore slump, and it takes a lot for me to overlook the sophomore slump and really think that he's going to be good. But I think this guy, and I think a lot of people know who I'm going to choose already, is set up to have another good season for the Atlanta Braves. And so my second pick to click is going to be Michael Harris. Michael Harris has a 136 weighted runs created plus, which if he were a qualified hitter would be right in there with people like Rafael Devers, Alejandro Kirk, Jeff McNeil, Pete Alonso, Luis Arayas, my other pick to click, Anthony Rizzo, Starling Marte. He's right up there in the top 25, right in there in the top 25, top 30 of hitters in terms of this offensive metric in the majors. Now, I'll give you a slash line. In 84 games, Michael Harris has a 298 average, 344 OBP, and a 515 slugging, 13 home runs. Now, in 2022, his prospect report, he's rated at a 35 game power, meaning in the game, he's rated at a 35 out of 80, which is not much, but he has been projected to have as good as 50 power, which is pretty decent. And he's actually got a 60 raid speed. Okay. And then if you look down here and you look at his stolen bases, he's got 16 stolen bases, 13 home runs, 16 stolen bases, very close in only 84 games played, mind you, to having a 2020 season. That's pretty darn good in my opinion. And he skipped AAA. He went from AA straight to AAA. Now, you guys might come to me and say, well, Austin, it's a rookie. They're going to figure him out, and they're, and stuff like that. And that's why they have those sophomore slumps, is these rookies that are really good. They end up figuring it out, and and then they end up being kind of bad, right, in their second season. But let me tell you this. I was looking at his stats in the minors. A walk percentage of about 9%, which is, pretty good for today's age anyway. And then you have a strikeout percentage normally in the teens, less than 20%, which again is pretty good for this day and age. Now his strikeout percentage has gone up and his walk percentage has gone down, which is to be expected for somebody that, skipped AAA, goes from the major straight to AA, right? But what I like to see here is actually his power numbers are up from when he was in the minors. So a rise in power numbers compared to what we'll probably see is a uptick in walks and a downtick in strikeouts. He's going to go back to his normal strikeouts once he gets really set. He has his second year in the majors. I think this will be a good player, but I think, in my opinion, what I think is really good is going to set him up really well for success in next year is the lineup that he has around him. He has Ronald Acuna Jr. Now, while Ronald Acuna Jr. has had issues with the knee and, he's had injury problems, he's still Ronald Acuna Jr. He's another one. I could have easily picked him as a pick to click for next year, right? You have Dansby Swanson, who's had a pretty good offensive year at shortstop. Austin Riley, Matt Olson. You have Eddie Rosario, who's a pretty decent offensive player himself. You have an up-and-coming catcher, William Contreras. There's a lot of good things going offensively for the Braves. So I think there are a lot of hitters around Michael Harris, and there's a lot of other hitters to focus on for Michael Harris. So not only is he having a good season this year, I think he's set up to have a good season next year and really be a good prospect to overcome that sophomore slump next year. I'm looking at Michael Harris to have that 2020 season next year. And I may even make a bold prediction here and say that he has a 2025 season next year. 25 homers, 25 stolen bases. That may be pretty bold, especially for a second-year player, but I believe somebody in the position as Michael Harris can do it. So that's my other pick to click. So my offensive pick to clicks have been Luis Arayas of the Twins, Michael Harris of the Braves. Let's go to pitchers now. Pitchers, what I did was I decided that I was going to again look at Fangraphs leaderboards. And for pitchers, I was going to look at ERA minus. And what ERA minus is essentially, it is a pitching statistic that, much like weighted runs created plus almost, it basically tells the value of the pitcher, again, in runs and adjusts it for the park. But in this one, instead of plus, you want higher than 100. This one, you want less than 100. The smaller the number, the better. Right. So I decided I was going to look at that. The other thing that I thought was really interesting, and I'm just going to do a quick tangent here for a second. Among qualified pitchers, the worst ERA minus at 137 is the supposed ace of the Toronto Blue Jays, Jose Barrios. I just thought that was really interesting. It was a weird stat that I saw there. Anyway, so I decided I was going to look at it, and again, you're going to see kind of the same people. You're going to see the Justin Verlander, Sandy Alcantara, who's having a great year this year. Dylan Cease, again, having a great year this year. He was almost my pick, one of my picks to click this year. If he gets that walk percentage down a little bit, he hasn't got it down enough for me to call him another pick to click and make that step up. But again, having a great season. You have Julio Reyes, Shane McClanahan, Max Fried, those guys. But one that I thought doesn't get enough love, and I think it's because he's on a losing team, that I really wanted to spotlight here is Zach Gallen of the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Zach Gallen of the Arizona Diamondbacks is a very good pitcher, and I don't think he gets enough love simply because he's on the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks have been a losing team, so nobody has, and they're in a competitive NL West that's really highlighted right now by the Dodgers and the Braves, or not the Braves, I'm sorry, the Padres, and the stars on that team. So really what Arizona is doing is very quietly very good. And part of that is Zach Gallen, the establishment of Zach Gallen. Zach Gallen is 27 years old, so he's still got some productive years left in him, right? This year, he's got 145 2/3 innings pitched, 2.53 ERA. That's pretty good. I think, in my opinion, it's really good. But not only is it really good, here's what I like from this. He's lessened his walks per nine to about 2.5 walks per nine. Whereas before, in other years, he's had 4 walks per. He has lowered his walks per nine by 1 whole walk, which is really hard to do, right? Especially when you've been in the big leagues for 4 years, like he has. Now we're seeing a downtick in strikeouts, but what I noticed is his ground ball percentage is going up. So what I'm noticing is, in my opinion, I think he's starting to learn how to pitch and less throwing. He's not throwing, he's pitching now, right? So I really like Zach Gallen in this way, simply because of the pitch command that he has. Right. He has a 50 grade fastball. He's got some okay fastballs. He doesn't have a fastball that's going to blow you away, but he's got a good fastball. He's got a pretty decent curveball, pretty decent changeup, pretty decent cutter. He doesn't have anything that's going to blow you away. Right. But he's a good profile for a more pitch to contact ground ball pitcher. Okay. Now, I think with that profile, the downtick in Ks is going to be okay. The downtick in strikeouts is going to be okay. Not only is there a downtick in strikeouts, though, there's also a downtick in home runs per nine. It's less than 1 now, which is really good. So I don't know. There's just something about Zach Gallen really for me that I feel like there's a lot of peripheral statistics that you see are going down that really makes me believe that he's going to click and be a really good pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks next year. Not only do I think he's going to soar, I think the Diamondbacks are going to soar here in the next couple of years. I'll talk about them here in a minute. But we're going to go to my next pick to click. I don't want to spend too much time on a lot because this is the Express Show and I don't want to spend an hour talking about all these guys. But another pick to click, I am going to say here that I was right about this pitcher. My opinion, I was right. I think that I was one of the first ones to get on the bandwagon with this guy. And some people weren't quite sure. They liked this guy, but weren't quite sure, thought he was going to take a step back this year. Not only has he not taken a step back this year, he's taken a step up. He has a better ERA. He has better production this year. Now, this guy is on the Blue Jays. Now, much to Felipe's dismay, I think, it's not Kevin Gausman. Kevin Gausman has been the guy that Felipe has championed here for the last couple of years, which, by the way, I just traded for Kevin Gausman in one of my fantasy drafts. Or in one of my fantasy leagues. So let's see. So Felipe is saying in regards to my Jose Barrios comment, he thought Kevin Gausman was the ace for the Jays, and he might very well be at this point. It's certainly not Jose Barrios. And then Felipe also saying that he I don't know if that means he likes my prediction of Michael Harris going 25, having a 25-25 season in 2023, or it may be a little bold, but we'll see. Anyway, my pick to click is on the Rays staff, but it's not Kevin Gausman and it's not Jose Barrios. It's Alec Manoa. I really like Alec Manoa. I like this guy's stuff. Okay. He has got a fantastic slider and a really good fastball. He's got a changeup too, but I'm not really awestruck with his changeup. What I like is his fastball and I like his slider a lot, but I like his fastball too. And even then, I'm looking here at the prospect report on Fangraphs, and they're even saying here, we may end up being low on Manoa, who we projected as the 4th starter and having a 2.5 WAR. Even if he can't develop a better changeup, his slider may be more dominant than anticipated. And in my opinion, it is more dominant, because not only has he surpassed that 2.5 WAR range, he's gone a whole half of a win above replacement up. He's at 3.1 right now. Okay. has lessened his ERA. Last year, he had a great season, 3.22 ERA. This year, he has a 2.6 ERA. His FIP has gone down, right? And so now the expected stats say that he's overperforming a little bit, but again, expected statistics, you never know, those change from season to season. He's another one that I'm noticing has a downtick in Ks and strikeouts, but he's also lessened his walk per 9 by 1 run, and he's even lessened his home runs per 9 even more, right? And I like this guy. I really, really do. He's got a great slider, great fastball. And you know what? That slider can produce ground balls all he wants. Okay. And I'm perfectly okay with that. If he's not getting strikeouts with that slider, I think it's okay, because I think it's good enough to get those ground balls. I think it's good enough to be a wipeout slider, but I think he can serve to be a ground ball pitcher as well. I like the way this kid is trending. He's 24 years old. He's got a lot of good productive seasons left in him. I would like to say that I think this is another prediction for me. I think within 2 years, you're going to see Alec Manoa as the ace of the Blue Jays, because of the rising age of Kevin Gausman, and Jose Barrios is Jose Barrios. You know what you're going to get out of Jose Barrios. I don't necessarily think he's going to continue to be the ace. I think Alec Manoa is going to challenge for that ace spot for the Blue Jays here in the next couple of years. And I'm sure Felipe is checking this, so I'm sure he's recording it and writing it down somewhere, and he's going to laugh in my face if I'm wrong. But I really think that I really like Alec Manoa, so I'm sticking behind that. Alec Manoa is going to be the ace of the Blue Jays within 2 years. Okay, so that's enough of my player picks to click. Again, my hitters were Luis Arayas, Michael Harris, Zach, and then my pitchers were Zach Gallen and Alec Manoa. Now I'm going to go to the teams. Okay, so the teams are harder because, you know, so many things can happen. You've got injuries. You've got, what else you got? You got injuries. You just got, some people just have terrible seasons that you didn't think would happen. Some people are projected to be really good and end up sucking. And you got people that project to suck and end up really good. Right. So it's tough. It's tough to predict what is going to click, but I'm going to take a shot at it anyway. And I came up with 2 teams. And in fact, even though I'm an Angel fan and I am an AL guy, I guess you want to say, I guess I'm giving some love to the NL. There are some NL teams I think that are established and I think will continue to be good. And there is one NL team that I think is going to be good. And I've already kind of alluded to it earlier in the show. The first team that I'm going to talk about here, and I've already talked about them a little bit, so I'm going to get them out of the way, is the Atlanta Braves. I think the Atlanta Braves are going to be really good. And I think they're overshadowed by the fact that the Mets have made so many good acquisitions, so many star-powered acquisitions, and their owner has been outspoken, and they've turned it around, and they haven't collapsed yet. I don't know. September just started. Mets fans hope they don't collapse. But quietly, and I guess not so quietly, but at the same time, it is quiet because these are the former World Series champions. These guys have already done it before. They've already had a trade deadline that proved to be the difference to win a World Series, and I think they got better since then. Right. And and they're just getting kind of overshadowed by the Mets. You still have Ronald Acuna Jr., who we know what Ronald Acuna Jr. can do. Will he be able to do that post-injury is still yet to be seen. But even then, you have Dansby Swanson, who's going to be 29 next year. You have Austin Riley, who's going to be 26 next year. You have Matt Olson, who's going to be 29 next year. Still going to be productive first baseman. You have Michael Harris, who I've already said is going to be a pick to click. And you've got some of these other guys. Vaughn Grissom is doing very well right now. You have Eddie Rosario, he's going to be 31, 32 next year. So, who knows? But you also have William Contreras, who has showed that he can hit. Not only that, but when you rank these guys in terms of hitting and pitching, Atlanta, in terms of overall batting, according to Fangraphs, is the 6th best offense in the majors. Right. And then in terms of pitching, Atlanta is up there too. They're the 4th best pitching staff. Now, at first I thought that's got to be their starters, and their starters, when you break it down to the starters, they're the 6th best starting. They're the 6th best starting rotation in terms of Fangraphs. And I thought, well, they got to get a little better in terms of their relief pitching, but the relief pitching, they're even better. They got the 3rd best bullpen. Now, I'm still a little wary of their bullpen because their bullpen is getting up there in age. You got Kenley Jansen at 34. He'll be 35 next year. You have Raisel Iglesias, who is going to be 33 next year. Their youngest guy in the bullpen is Dylan Lee at the moment at 28 years old. So in my mind, you're going to need to reconstruct that bullpen and get some younger guys in the bullpen. But I mean, they've got a few pitchers that could service as some bullpen guys. Maybe they can work something in the free agency or into trades or something like that. I think the thing they're going to need to focus on next year is their bullpen. When you look at their starting pitching, they have Max Fried still in his 20s. You have Kyle Wright still in his 20s. He's a little bit more of a wild card in my opinion. Yes, Spencer Strider, who has backed up his mouth. If I'm going to be honest, he's ran his mouth, but he's backed it up, having a pretty good season this year. Charlie Morton is getting up there. And right now their number 5 is Jake Odorizzi. So maybe you want to get a couple back end starters, but they've got a good core and they've got a good offense. I think these guys are set up to be established and good for a while. Right. So that's going to be my first pick to click in the NL. I think they are going to give the Mets a run for their money for the next couple of years anyway, is the Atlanta Braves. And the other one, and I guess I've already alluded to this one too. This one I like for other reasons. I like this team because they've improved. And not only have they improved, they've improved by a lot, and their future looks bright. And they're in a competitive division, but not they're in a competitive division, but I think this division is about to turn. I'm talking about the Arizona Diamondbacks here. I like the Arizona Diamondbacks. First, I'm going to talk about their major league lineup. Their major league lineup is pretty young, and I haven't checked the stats, but I would be willing to bet it's probably one of the youngest in the bigs, right? And you've got some good pieces here. You have Jake McCarthy, who's come into his own right now. Is that going to stay? I don't know. You've got Christian Walker, who what he lacks in average, he gets back in power. Okay. You've got Dalton Varsho, who I still like Dalton Varsho personally, myself. He was supposed to be the catcher, and he's the right fielder. You've got young guns like Corbin Carroll and Alec Thomas. You've got Geraldo Perdomo coming up. All of those have proven to be pretty decent. I think their problem is kind of the same problem as the Yankees have right now to a lesser extent. I think they need a different manager. I think Torey Lovullo going forward is not the manager for the Diamondbacks. I don't know. Our resident Diamondback fan, Corey Decker, might say otherwise, but I don't know. Just the Diamondbacks games that I've seen, he has not made good managerial decisions, and it's been very Aaron Boone-like, in my opinion. But on top of that, not only do they have these young guns coming up into the major league roster, but they also have one of the best farm systems. So not only are they set up to be good now, they're set up to be good for a while, right? I mean, you've got people like You've got people waiting like Dre Jamison. You've got people. I mean, Jordan Lawler is in the double A system. You've got. I mean, they've got prospects. They've got young guys that they can either trade for for big stars, or they can keep them and see what happens with them. I think they're set up very well. This gives me very much like the Houston Astros vibe when they came over to the AL West, minus the trash cans. They're just set up in the farm system to have some studs offensively, and pitching wise, like I said, Zach Gallen is one of my picks to click. Merrill Kelly, he's getting up there in age, but he's still pretty good. You've got some younger guys, but again, like I said, you've got Dre Jamison, you've got Brandon Fat, you've got these pitching prospects that are probably getting ready to go up. Ryan Nelson, probably, like I said, they're probably getting ready to get up there, right? So not only that, the Rockies aren't going to get any better, in my opinion. The Rockies aren't going to get any better. The Giants are okay. I think last season they overperformed, and that was kind of it for the next couple of years. The Dodgers are set up to be still pretty dominant, but I think the key here is I think the the Padres. I don't think the Padres are going to last very long. I really don't. I think the Padres are simply going to collapse here in the next couple of years. You have Tatis and you have Machado, and then after that, you really don't have anybody else after that. Anybody they acquire in terms of pitching just blow up. Look at Yu Darvish and Josh Hader and Blake Snell, and those guys aren't dominant like we thought they were going to be. Not only that, they spent so much time trying to trade for these big stars. They don't have a farm anymore. So they don't have anybody to come up and replace these guys that didn't work. So I think the Padres are going to falter, and that is going to serve really well for the Diamondbacks to get in there and maybe even capture a wild card spot. They've improved. They went from one of the worst offenses and pitching staffs in the majors to being about the middle, to being about 15th, 16th in both offense and pitching. So they have an upward trajectory, and I really think that they're going to continue with these young guns to get better. So those are my picks to click. I'm going to go over it one more time. Luis Arayas, Michael Harris, Zach Gallen, Alec Thomas. And then for the teams, or not Alec Thomas, Alec Manoa, I'm sorry. And then for my teams, I've got the Atlanta Braves and the Arizona Diamondbacks. And I think that's pretty much going to conclude the show. So thank you very much for tuning in to the Total Bases Express show. Go ahead and you can catch me and Felipe on Sunday at 10 a.m. Central, where we will be reviewing our fantasy league. And lo and behold, it's me and Felipe in the finals. So we'll talk about that going in there. Thank you so much to the people in the comments. Go ahead and keep commenting. Thank you to those of you that are listening from YouTube. Hello, and audio only. We really appreciate all your listens every week. Please continue to word of mouth. Give us a 5-star review. Talk to your friends about us. We would love to continue to make this podcast grow. So yeah, thanks so much. And that is the end of the show. And until next time, have a good one, everybody.